The Rohingya people are a Muslim minority group who have lived in Myanmar for centuries. Their homeland is Rakhine State, located on the western coast of the country. However, the Rohingya have long faced discrimination and persecution in Myanmar. The government has denied them citizenship and basic rights. For decades, the Rohingya have been subjected to violence and oppression. They have been denied access to education, healthcare and employment. Their movement has been restricted, forcing many to live in fear and uncertainty. The Rohingya are effectively trapped. This systematic discrimination stems from deep-seated prejudice within Myanmar. The Rohingya are seen as outsiders and illegal immigrants, despite their long history in the region. This perception has fueled hostility and resentment towards the Rohingya community. The Rohingya have endured decades of suffering and marginalization. Their plight has been largely ignored by the international community. This history of persecution is crucial to understanding the events of 1991, when the situation for the Rohingya reached a critical point. In 1991, the military regime in Myanmar intensified its crackdown on the Rohingya people. This campaign of violence and intimidation was aimed at forcing the Rohingya out of Rakhine State. Soldiers raided villages, burning homes and killing civilians. Rohingya men were arbitrarily arrested and detained. Women and girls were subjected to horrific sexual violence. The military junta used fear and terror to drive the Rohingya from their homes. The situation quickly spiraled into a humanitarian crisis. Hundreds of thousands of Rohingya fled their villages to escape the violence. They sought refuge in neighboring Bangladesh, embarking on a perilous journey. Many died along the way from starvation, disease or exhaustion. The 1991 crackdown was a turning point in the Rohingya crisis. It marked a significant escalation in the persecution faced by the Rohingya people. The world watched as a humanitarian catastrophe unfolded. The journey to Bangladesh was arduous and fraught with danger. Rohingya families were forced to flee on foot, carrying whatever belongings they could salvage. They walked for days, often without food or water. The elderly and the very young were particularly vulnerable. Many Rohingya crossed rivers and streams, risking their lives to escape the pursuing Myanmar military. Boats were often overcrowded and unsafe, leading to tragic accidents. The refugees were met with hostility and suspicion by some in Bangladesh. Despite the challenges, the Rohingya showed remarkable resilience and determination. They relied on each other for support, sharing their meager resources and offering comfort in the face of adversity. The desire to survive and protect their families fueled their journey. The mass exodus of Rohingya refugees into Bangladesh strained the resources of the already impoverished nation. The world was forced to pay attention to the unfolding crisis. The refugee camps in Bangladesh were quickly overwhelmed by the influx of Rohingya refugees. The conditions were dire. Shelter was inadequate, with families crammed into overcrowded tents or makeshift shelters made from bamboo and plastic sheets. Food and clean water were scarce, leading to widespread malnutrition and disease. Sanitation facilities were woefully inadequate, creating a breeding ground for illness. Children, in particular, were vulnerable to preventable diseases. The Rohingya refugees arrived in Bangladesh traumatized and dispossessed. They had witnessed horrific violence and lost loved ones. Many struggled to cope with the psychological and emotional toll of their experiences. The Bangladeshi government, with the support of international aid organizations, worked to provide basic necessities to the refugees. However, the scale of the crisis was immense, and the needs of the Rohingya people were overwhelming. Section 5. The World Takes Notice. The 1991 Rohingya exodus sparked international condemnation of the Myanmar military regime. Human rights organizations documented the atrocities committed against the Rohingya and called for an end to the violence. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, or UNHCR, established a presence in Bangladesh to coordinate relief efforts. International aid organizations provided food, water, shelter and medical care to the Rohingya refugees. The international community pressured the Myanmar government to allow the safe return of the Rohingya refugees. However, the military junta remained defiant, refusing to acknowledge the Rohingyas' right to citizenship or to guarantee their safety. The 1991 exodus brought the plight of the Rohingya to the world's attention. However, despite the initial outcry, the international community's response proved to be inadequate in addressing the root causes of the crisis. Section 6. Struggles for survival. Life in the refugee camps was a daily struggle for survival. The Rohingya faced constant uncertainty and hardship. They lived in fear of being forcibly repatriated to Myanmar, where they faced persecution. The lack of educational opportunities for Rohingya children was a major concern. Many children grew up in the camps without access to proper schooling, perpetuating a cycle of poverty and displacement. The Rohingya community organized themselves within the camps, establishing community centers, mosques and schools. They strive to preserve their language, culture and traditions. Despite the challenging circumstances, the Rohingya demonstrated remarkable resilience and determination. They refused to be defined by their displacement, clinging to hope for a better future. Section 7. A failed return. In the early 1990s, the Myanmar government and the UNHCR initiated a repatriation program, aiming to return the Rohingya refugees to Myanmar. However, these efforts were largely unsuccessful. The Rohingya refugees were reluctant to return to Myanmar without guarantees of citizenship, safety and basic rights. They feared further persecution and discrimination if they went back. The repatriation process was marred by allegations of coercion and intimidation. The Myanmar authorities failed to create conditions conducive to the safe and dignified return of the Rohingya refugees. The failure of the repatriation efforts highlighted the deep-seated mistrust between the Rohingya and the Myanmar government. It also underscored the need for international pressure on Myanmar to address the root causes of the Rohingya crisis. Section 8. Rohingya Resilience. Despite facing immense challenges, the Rohingya people have demonstrated remarkable resilience and a strong sense of community. They have endured decades of persecution and displacement without losing hope. The Rohingya have maintained their cultural identity and traditions even in the face of adversity. They have created vibrant communities in exile, passing on their language, customs and values to future generations. The Rohingya have been active in advocating for their rights and raising awareness about their plight. They have called for international recognition and protection, demanding an end to the discrimination and violence they face. The resilience of the Rohingya people is a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome adversity. Their story is a reminder of the importance of compassion, solidarity, and the pursuit of justice. Section 9. A forgotten exodus. The 1991 Rohingya exodus was a significant event in the long history of Rohingya persecution. It brought the plight of the Rohingya to international attention, highlighting the urgent need for a just and lasting solution. However, despite the initial outcry, the international community's response to the Rohingya crisis has been inadequate. The root causes of the crisis, including the denial of Rohingya citizenship and rights, remain unresolved. The 1991 exodus serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of indifference and inaction. It is a call to action for the international community to stand in solidarity with the Rohingya people and demand an end to their suffering. The Rohingya people's struggle for recognition, justice, and a safe and dignified future continues. It is imperative that the world remembers the 1991 exodus and learns from the mistakes of the past.